Merry Christmas.
And God bless us, everyone.
And a bah humbug to you.
I must stop Christmas from coming.
Oh, you don't believe that, do you?
What, are you gonna cry now?
They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming.
Is Daddy in trouble?
Yes, Pete.
You're worth more dead than alive.
Tell me these events can yet be changed.
The richest man in the cemetery.
To my big brother George, the richest man in town.
Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? For behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. That's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown.
Morning, everybody. That last song was powerful, wasn't it? I don't know if it was something was going on with me down on the front row, I can tell you that. We're in the second week of this series that we've entitled Rewind Christmas. What if you could unlearn everything you learned about Christmas and see it all fresh and new as an adult? Last week we rewound the promise. And this week I want to rewind religion. You know, in every religion there are rules, right? In Islam, there are the 5 pillars. Moses hauled down the 10 commandments from the mountaintop for the Jews. And in Christianity, certainly, it sure has its fair share of rules, right? First you got Protestant and Catholic, and they all have sort of rule variations. And then among the Protestant religions, oh good gracious, there seems to be about 100 different denominational applications to the rules, right? Baptists, you know, I think they have the most rules, and they don't think the Methodists have enough. And Presbyterians, I mean, they keep dividing into new denominations that all have rule variations, right? You got PCA, PC, USA, RPS, EPC, OPP. You down with OPP? Yeah, you know me. See, I didn't think a lot of people would get that. I thought I would just be sharing a sweet moment with a few of you, but nice. So for many, the perception in believing God is simply obeying a list of rules, right? Do these things and don't do these things. And here is one thing that I know about humans. When it comes to anything from highway driving to religion, when we don't get to set the rules, we immediately start trying to figure out a way around the rules. That's just who we are. That's in our DNA. So what is the relationship between rules and religion, and how does it surface in the Christmas story? I told you in week 1 that much of this inspiration for this entire series comes from a book called Starting Point by Andy Stanley, the pastor, preacher, author down at North Point in Atlanta. I read this thing probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and his claim is this, that everything we believe has a starting point. And he says that it's very healthy from time to time to go back to the starting point of that belief and re-examine it and maybe rediscover what it is that you believe. And that's what I wanted to do with Christmas. I want to sort of lay that concept over 4 sort of major themes as we go through this series. And Stanley claims in that book that rules always assume relationship. What do I mean by that? Whenever you are accountable to a set of rules, like your job or a sports team or a club or even your family, wherever there are rules, there is some sort of a relationship that takes place there, right? And I want to look at what Andy Stanley calls this sort of 3 sweeping sort of rule models. So there's lots of different models for rules. Here are 3 so that we can group up most rules and relationships into. 1, you got the family model, right? There's a family model of rules. You're born into a family, and your parents decide to start making rules. They didn't make rules to make you part of the family. You are already part of the family, and then they establish rules. These rules, they can change over time. They can be reestablished from time to time, but they are part of you being considered part of the family. You know, I had an older brother growing up that was a rule follower. He always got straight A's. I mean, I'm serious. He never got a B till he went to college. He never got in trouble at all. this was not good. Because, see, he never challenged the established rules. Anybody have an older brother like this, right? You don't want an older brother like that. You want an older brother that works the rules over a little bit before you come along. You want an older brother that presses those rules a little bit. You want an older brother like my younger brother had, me, right? Because I wore my parents out on the rules. By the time my younger brother came along, he hardly had any rules at all, and often they even forgot his name, right? See, I remember my mom one time sitting myself and my younger brother down. I mean, we were just little guys, and she told us that she was taking us to an orphanage and dropping us off. She made us go upstairs and pack a suitcase. I'm not kidding. And my mom is one of the sweetest women ever. So I can't even imagine what in the world we had done. See, the interesting part of this model, though, is parents only set rules for their own kids, right? I've been in some public spaces where I wished I could set some rules for some other people's kids. Haven't you? But that's not the way this model works. In summary, then, in this model, rules do not make you part of the family. Rules exist because you are part of the family. The second model is what Andy Stanley refers to as the club model. You review a set of rules. They're pre-established, and you agree to follow them. And if you do, then you get into the club, right? You read a contract, or these rules are verbalized to you. You either sign a contract or agree. And as long as you keep the rules, you're in. But if you break the rules, you're in trouble, possibly even risk being asked to leave the club. An example is like an employment contract, right? You know the rules going in. You want to work here. You got to abide by these rules, right? Could be a sports team or a fraternity or a sorority. So to summarize this club model, it's this. You get the rules up front, and you agree to them in order to establish the relationship. And the third category of these rule models is it's a lot less black and white, and maybe it's even intentionally gray. And I love that Stanley calls this one the neighborhood association model. In this model, you don't know exactly where you stand. You buy a house, and you get moved in, and then you discover there's a neighborhood association in place with rules that you might not have been aware of. And depending on what little power-hungry last kid picked in gym class guy happens to be the president of the association, you could be in trouble, right? You're not even sure of the rules until you get that first little snarky warning that shows up in your mailbox, right? Yeah, I moved up to Wexford about 4 years ago from Munhall. We brought our in-laws with us, and Munhall's a sort of a Mon Valley steel town, working class town. There weren't neighborhood associations in Munhall, okay? I mean, there are no rules about fence heights. I was not aware that there was a rule that you could only have a swing set in your backyard, not in your front yard. I had a guy that lived on my street that had a swing set in his front yard, and every November he'd hang the deer that he shot from it. I'd be driving down the street with my kids, look to the left, don't look over there. That would be frowned upon in Wexford. I can assure you of that, right? In Wexford, I got a note in my mailbox for leaving my car in the street overnight. In Munhall, my neighbor had 4 cars. All of them were in the street, and 3 of them were parts, and 1 of them worked, right? I was still just trying to get used to this, and notes kept showing up in my mailboxes. And one day, I'm on a hot summer day, my first summer, I'm driving up the street, and my father-in-law, George, is sitting on a bucket in the front yard without his shirt on, watering the yard. And I'm like, George, get in the house. We are surely going to get another notice for this, right? So in summary, with this one, you try to behave to the best of your ability. And if you don't, they actually can't throw you out of the neighborhood, but they can treat you lousy and hope that you move somewhere else. So with these 3 models in mind, and that premise that where there are rules, there is relationship, where do our religious sort of rules seem to feel or fit best? When it comes to your relationship with God, where do they seem to fit? Is it this neighborhood association model? You know, God can sometimes make me feel really lousy about my behavior, or religion can make me feel sort of guilty and at times a lot of shame, but I don't think they can kick me out. Is it the club model? You know, you've agreed to a set of rules up front, and you join and you're trying your best to abide by those rules, but deep down you're just not even quite sure you're measuring up, and you sort of fear that you might have already been kicked out of the club. Or is it the family model? I'm in. I was born in. As long as I don't mess up too bad, then I think they'll keep me. And most of us, my guess is that at least some of you, you may have grown up in churches that seemed to place quite a bit of emphasis on following the rules, and also talked a lot about the eternal consequences of not following the rules. And I want to say that maybe you've even been wounded there, causing you to struggle with the church and therefore with God. But I think regardless of even our church experience, we have this internal sort of question from time to time. Are we living up to God's expectations when it comes to his rules? Can I rewind this for a moment back to the oldest set of laws ever given in human history, or at least one of the oldest sets? It is the most well-documented set of rules. It can be found in Jewish, Islamic, and Christian literature. All three major religions agree that the Ten Commandments were given to Moses by God somewhere around 1500 BC. And last week we talked about the promise that was given by God to Abraham, that he would become a great nation through him, that his descendants, as many as there were stars that could be counted, would be a blessing to all people. But see, where there was a problem, Abraham was old and he had no kiddos, right? And if you know the story, Abraham's wife Sarah comes to him and says, hey, how about you and my handmaiden Hagar? Why don't you two, then she'll have a kid and we'll raise that kid. So along comes Ishmael. And several years later, just as God promised Abraham, him and Sarah actually do conceive a child together named Isaac. And in Islam, Ishmael is known as the son of blessing. Right? And in Judaism and Christianity, Isaac is the son of blessing. And Arab nations through the prophet Muhammad all go back to Ishmael, is their belief, and through Isaac, the 12 tribes of Israel emerge. So from that point, fast forward with me 600 years. And the nation of Israel for the past 400 years has been captive in Egypt as slaves. Generation after generation, they are oppressed and abused slaves. They would have heard and probably been told often those stories about Father Abraham, and that God promised that one day they would be a great nation, but it sure does not even seem like a possibility. Just got to put yourself in their situation. 400 years, desperate, clinging on to that promise. And then God calls a man named Moses, and we said this last week, to go. God says, I've heard my people's cries and I can't stand them no more, right? And Moses, he goes up to Pharaoh and he says, come on, Charleston Heston voice, everybody, let my people go, right? You know the movie. And Pharaoh says, no, thank you. So Moses opens a can of whoop plagues on him, right? I mean, locusts and frogs and stink bugs, right? He pollutes the rivers like the Mon back in Pittsburgh in the cities in the 60s. And Pharaoh keeps saying no. And finally Moses, what he does, God tells the whole nation of Israel to pack up because we're leaving tomorrow. And the people are like, we're slaves. What do you mean? I don't even think we're allowed to do that, and we don't have luggage. Remember, we're slaves. And God says, pack it up, but before you do, kill a goat, because we're going to have a special night before leaving Egypt meal, and take some of the blood and smear it on the door frame around your house. And the people are like, goodness, that meal sounds okay, but the blood thing, and we're slaves. And God says what? Trust me. Trust me. Because of Pharaoh's obstinate, inhumane, bullheaded behavior, that night the angel of death moves through Egypt, killing all the firstborn sons except for the homes that have the blood on the doorframe. It's the Passover. And the next day, Pharaoh indeed says, leave. Man, take anything you want, just go. And then he has this almost immediate change of heart. And as the people are at the Red Sea, they're now pinned between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's mighty armies. And you know the story. God, he parts the Red Sea. And I love this line where it says the people crossed on dry land. So not only did he push the water back, he sucked up all the moisture. They weren't slogging through mud. It says they crossed on dry land. And Pharaoh's army tries to chase and follow them in. The sea swallows them up. And this is so important. This is why I brought you sort of that little history there to bring you to this point. All they have known is slavery. They have some form of probably civil society going on in Egypt, but all they know is being under the oppressive rules and brutality of an evil empire. And several weeks later now, they are at the base of Mount Sinai, and God is about to give them the 10 Commandments. And I just want to read the first verse, the introduction to the 10 Commandments, that I believe gives us a glimpse into God's model for rules. Exodus 2 says this, Exodus 20, verse 2. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. See, God is saying something significant here. Before I even tell you the rules, I want to make a few things really, really clear. In your darkest moment, when all hope seemed lost, I heard your cries, and I brought you out of Egypt. Those plagues and that Passover and that parting of the sea was me because I love you. I have an intention for your life, and my agenda is always love. So before I even give you one single law, I want you to hear something. I'm your God, and you are my people. See, the 10 Commandments were a confirmation of their relationship, not a condition from God. God was not saying, I'm going to give you 10 things to do now, and as long as you do them all, then we're good. And if you start messing them up, then I'm not sure, and if you mess up at least maybe more than half, then I'm going to go get me some new people. It's not what he's saying. The 10 Commandments, 1,500 years before Jesus, 2,100 years before the prophet Muhammad. In this very beginning, God was making something very clear to his nation. You are my people. And not because you've done anything to deserve it. And now that we've established this relationship, I want to show you how to live together. And it starts with simply this: trust me. But first and foremost, you're my people. The rules do not make you part of this family. I am your God, and I love you, and you are part of the family. And right up to the time of Jesus, the Jews continued to insist on a different rule model, right? They just kept packing on hundreds of do's and don'ts, and Islam came along and said, just work real hard and hope that you've done enough. And sadly, for many of you, the Christianity may have felt more like the neighborhood association model to you. Depending on what denomination or how your pastor or how the membership lends these rules, you always felt like you were trying to figure it out, if you were in or if you were out. No matter what, I think so often at times we just felt like we were failing. And sadly, many people walked away from all three faith traditions, just said no thanks. They've run away and left the church, the mosque, or the temple. They've run away. As a child, did you ever run away from home? And I mean like when you were like a little dude, little guy or little gal. Did you ever do the runaway thing? I did several times. And often my mom didn't even realize I was gone because I got hungry, and it started getting dark, and I spent my last quarter on baseball cards or whatever. So I just came home, and she didn't even know. I remember once, though, telling her that I was going to run away. And she packed me some sandwiches, and she told me this, though, that she'd leave the light on and the front door unlocked in case I wanted to come back. Folks, what if each sunrise that we could view it as God leaving the light on and the door unlocked for us? What if we could look at it as this daily reminder from God saying, come home from your wanderings and your stubbornness? I mentioned last week that for whatever reason, the Christmas season, it tends to be a nostalgic time, a time when we're prone to, I think, reflect and even long for spiritual connectedness. We long for family connections during this time. We think back. Do you know the origins of the word nostalgia? When you really look it up and dig into it, it's defined as a longing for home or family. It can be translated homesickness. As humans, we are designed for community. We are relational beings, and all of us are searching for a family, a community, a person, a love. And we're all searching for that place to belong. And for whatever reason at Christmas time, I think this nostalgia, this homesickness, it just seems to deepen. If you want to boil the story of the scriptures down to just maybe three sort of big themes, I really believe they're this. One, it's this story of God creating us and inviting us to his home. The people of Israel was to be his nation, to be his people. And the second theme is this, that throughout human history, it's us running away from that home and wanting to do our own thing. And however, though, as we run, or however far away that we run, there's still this nostalgic, I feel like, haunting almost. So something that's deep down that says something's missing. No matter how hard or far we want to run from God, I still believe that he calls us back. And it's this eternal, internal sort of ache that we can try to suppress that. We can say God's meaningless. I don't know, at Christmas time, there's just something. He's calling us. And the third point is this, and please don't miss this one. Christmas is Jesus leaving home to find us. We had all run away. And he came to find us and to bring us home. So I want to rewind the Christmas story, but I want to read an account that's maybe not often read at Christmas time. It's the account of Jesus' birth that's found in the Gospel of John. In chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Now there was a man sent from God whose name was John. And they're referring to John the Baptist here. And next week we're going to talk about his birth account in the Christmas story. He came as a witness, John the Baptist, to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, John the Baptist, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, please listen to this. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become what? Children of God. Folks, it's right there. Children. This is the family model that's going down here. This is not the right to become a member of the club. This is not the right to become some member of some association where you try to figure out No, this is the family. Believe in his name, Jesus, and you have the rights of a family member. Oh, that's good news. Who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And here it is. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Merry Christmas. That's it right there, right? Baby born in Bethlehem. And we have seen his glory, glory as of the Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he whom I said, who comes after and ranks before me, because he was before me." For from this fullness, now we have all received grace upon grace. Now get this. For the law was given through Moses, okay, for a nation to become part of the family of God. Grace and truth through Jesus Christ. The birth of Jesus is an invitation for all people to join. It's an invitation for all people to become part of the family. That's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown. And last week I made this statement that this Christmas, could you come home to God? Would you consider? And this week, I want to throw another challenge at you. This Christmas, would you consider coming home to God's family, the church? See, folks, church is just a biblical word for humans connected to God and connected to each other. And if you heard people, or maybe sometime you've even said this, you know what? Me and God, we're good. We have our own relationship. I don't do that church thing, that institutionalized religion thing. And the reality is what you're saying is that you can worship God better on your own. Maybe in the woods or on a golf course on Sunday morning. And what you're actually saying is that you don't trust God. Big statement, right? Why? Because the scriptures tell us that you cannot love God and not love people. And if you think that you and God have this exclusive relationship that exempts you from his community called the church, then you're not connecting to God. I really just think you're confused. Because he designed you and me to need each other. We are designed for community. You are not designed to do this on your own. It's not about me and I. We are designed for we and us. And I really believe it breaks God's heart when we are not in his community together. And there's lots of scriptures I could have went to here. I'm going to land in Ephesians 2:19, familiar. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens. This is a call to all people that have accepted the invitation to trust and believe. You are fellow citizens with the saints and the members of the what? The household, the family of God. See, the moment that you enter into this relationship with God, you become part of God's household. And it's like the saying goes, right? You can choose your friends, but you're stuck with your family. And we're brothers and sisters. If you've accepted that invitation, and we're stuck with each other. And the church is the place that you belong, because you are no longer a stranger or a foreigner. You're home here. The scripture goes on to say, built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole structure being joined together grows into a holy temple in the Lord. When you come to God, you are home. And when you give your life to him, Jesus comes in and he makes himself at home. Right? In him, you also are built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. See then, folks, when we come together as a people and as a church, we become a home for one another, but also for those that are searching. And that is so important. It's not about the building or the denomination or the worship style. Those are all preferences. It's the moment that we come together committed to each other, that we become a family, a community of faith. It's the family model. How come at times, though, church doesn't feel like that maybe? Or maybe your past experiences. How did this movement that Jesus died for and ignited 2,000 years ago maybe feel or something that you've experienced in your past? How did it happen that the God who creates the future became represented often by churches that were focused on preserving the past? How did it happen that the church became this sort of last bastion for the protection of yesterday instead of the epicenter of tomorrow? The church was never supposed to be known for its grip on tradition. It was supposed to be known for its love for humanity, for the runaways, in order for them to find a way home. And we need to remember, while we are here for each other, that the church isn't here for us. We are the church, and we are here for the world. And there's a section of a sermon by Charles Spurgeon that I've always just loved. And I'm going to read it to you now. I think it's my favorite sort of description of the church. Some of it's written sort of a little bit in an older language, so track with me. I'll have it up on the screens. He says this: "Give yourself to the church. You that are members of the church have not found it perfect, and I hope that you feel almost glad that you have not. If I had never joined a church till I found one that was perfect, I would never have joined one at all. And the moment I did join it, if I had found one, I would have spoiled it, for it would not have been perfect church after I became a member of it. Still, imperfect as it is the dearest place on earth to us. All who have first given themselves to the Lord should, as speedily as possible, also give themselves to the Lord's people. How else is there to be a church on the earth? If it is right for anyone to refrain from membership in the church, it is right for everyone. And then the testimony of God would be lost to the world. As I have already said, the church is faulty. Amen? But that is no excuse for not joining it if you are the Lord's. Nor need your own faults keep you back. For the church is not an institution for perfect people, but a sanctuary for sinners, saved by grace, who though they are saved, they're still sinners and need all the help they can derive from the sympathy and the guidance of their fellow believers. The church is the nursery for God's weak children, where they are nourished and grow strong. It is the fold for Christ's sheep, the home of Christ's family. There are no perfect churches, thank goodness, because none of us would be allowed in if there are, right? And see, and go ahead, fire it up. I have seen the church be the dearest place on earth. Man, I have seen the church rally when a brother or sister or family member is down. I have seen the church celebrate so well with somebody in the joyous moments of life, and I've seen them pick up men and women and carry them when they couldn't walk. The church is most beautiful, and I believe in its meant to be state when it's made up of people that are near and far from God. It is best when it is made up of some folks that grew up in the church and others that swore they wouldn't do what they did last night, but they're here this morning being part of it. I think the church is at its best when it's made up of some people that have known Jesus for 50, 60 plus years, and others that came to him last week, and still others that are curious, that are runaways, that are wary of this Christian gathering, but are still here. See, folks, it's not about religion, it's about family, being committed to God's family. And I believe, I'm privy to some stuff maybe that's happening around our nation, and I just believe that God's doing something. And I know too often I think people are hearing something differently, but I see God raising up these non-denominational churches around the country in these large cities And I see this multi-site sort of movement happening. Churches that have laid down sort of tradition and become concerned about the runaway, concerned about the lost. And all across this country, I'm telling you, in major cities where lots of people live, the churches are rising up. There's an amazing thing going on. And a lot of it's this multi-site sort of movement. And, some people I know that we have 4 campuses and we do the video thing at our other campuses. And people think that sometimes, you just do that because it's slick, all the technology you have. No, that's not why we do it. It's a stewardship issue. Why would I want 4, 5, 6 guys eventually spending 20 or 30 hours a week on a sermon when they could be with people, caring for them, reaching the lost? That's why we're doing this. And then I'm starting to see these churches in these cities begin to connect and go after missional things. I love what the church is doing with this open source mentality. You might not be aware of this, but there was a time where churches went like this with their stuff. And there is a thing happening across this country right now where churches are going like this. Here, have my videos. Take the sermons. Here's the books. Come on out. We'll train you. We'll do anything. Here's applications for the phones. Just take them. There's an amazing thing going on, I think, right now in the church movement in this country. And I believe that Northway could be doing something right now that could be talked about in 100 years from now in this city. And it starts, though, with us remembering that He is our God and we are His people. And rules don't make you part of this family. God says, I'm your God. I love you and you are part of this family. And it starts with trusting Him. I don't think I can do a sermon like this without at least maybe pushing you a little bit or challenging you. So I think this could fit just about everybody in this room, one of these challenges. One is this: if you've run away from God's family, the church, then it's time to come home. The church, let me put it this way: if the church or this church has done something to offend you in the past, then hear and accept my apology. And please come home. The light is on and the door is unlocked. Come home. And secondly, maybe you've been here for a while. I don't know, I got lots of analogies here, but maybe you've just sort of been eating at the buffet. Maybe you're like that kid growing up. Did you have a kid like this in your neighborhood that he always showed up at dinner time? He's always swimming in your pool, playing with your stuff. He wasn't really doing any of the chores. Can I challenge some of you? It's time to join. It's time to serve. It's time to give. It's time to lead. Come on. We need you. And you need community. And I believe we can do something amazing in this region through God together. And then this last challenge, I don't know if this is 1 out of 100 of you. I would say this is for those early adopters, the radical, those that are looking to slay giants. Get missional. What do I mean by that? Get missional. Our church has, and if you've been around for the last year, we've talked about it a lot. We are going after orphan, abandoned, and at-risk children, locally and globally. It's our focus. Join that with us. Mentor a child in Homewood. We've talked about our LAMP ministry forever. We have 40 kids on a waiting list right now. Mentor a child. Go on a mission trip this year. Many of you right now have been saying you were going to do that for many, many years. This is your year. Get missional this year. Find another cause. It doesn't even have to be one connected to this church. Just find something that you know. Actually, when you see this or you hear about this, it actually gets you like a little bit of righteous anger going on inside you. You say, oh man, that shouldn't be that way. Maybe it's foster a child. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever it is that just gets you like, oh, I want to do something about that. Do something about that. This year, do something about that. So come home. Join, serve, give, or lead. Or for some of you, this is the year to get missional. Will you stand up with me? I just want to make this personal right now, that if there is someone in this room that this church has offended, my assistant's going to be mad at me, but I'm going to say this anyhow. Email me. My email is on the website. Click on my name and email me. Because I want to get that out of the way. Because, folks, we got work to do. And if you've been offended by another church in the past, I want to apologize on their behalf. I don't know what it was, but I want to encourage you to get involved and join, serve, and give and lead in God's church. It's the way we were designed. Let me pray for us. So God, I thank you for Northway. I thank you for its history, its rich legacy of going after folks on the edges, for taking risk, for innovating. I thank you for the way that you've blessed this church for 30 plus years. And God, I give to you the future of this church. We want to make an impact in this region for Christ. God, we give you our strategy and our plans and all that, and we lay it down and say, would you lead us? But on this day, God, would you call people home to your church? In your Son's name, amen. Would you go and have a seat?